Have you ever reacted to an event and something popped out of your mouth that you wanted to take back? You're kind of thinking, is that actually my inside voice? You know, that conversation we have that we don't want to share with anyone? How about you've been asked to do something and your body language screams no way before you ever open your mouth? We are in communication mastery, and today our topic is powerful truth why your social life it may be exposing your past failures and hurt. My name is Suzanne Hart, and welcome to Unstoppable Mindset. And every week we bring you breakthrough strategies to help you reset your thinking. This conversation is definitely for you if you want to bring your communication to another level. This is for you if sometimes you feel a disconnect between what you're attempting to say and what people are actually picking up. We are going to have a conversation about how our communication kind of oozes out of us in all sorts of different ways and impacts our success. So as you jump on, please do the usual. Please let me know who you are and where you are joining us from. I want to know what platform you're on and put your name in the comment section so I can speak to you directly. I also want to know what you do while you're living. So what do you do while you're living? What excites you and who you're called to serve? As you're doing those comments, also let us know what brought you out today. What is it that you really want to hear? What question you might have answered, and get into communication with me. Put comments, thoughts, whatever's coming up for you, put that in the comment section. I'm also going to ask you to bless a life. And what that means is to simply share this live, share this conversation with someone who you want to bless. Share it to your page, share it to a group, share it with a friend who communication may be something that they're focused on and they want to bring it to a next level. If you're listening to the replay, hashtag replay. Thank you for joining us. And also, I know it's a replay, but please do let us know who you are, where you're joining us from, and who you're called to serve. As you're listening, put your comments in the comment section because although it's a replay, I go back at the end of the week and I answer questions, make comments, so please get engaged. Also, when you love what you hear, go ahead, bless a life. Let someone know you just listened to this amazing conversation and you just wanted to share it with them. Why do we do these things? One is this is our virtual networking opportunity. You know, this is our opportunity to connect with people all over the country and sometimes all over the planet. You never know who might be watching this live, see what you do and say, I have to reach out to that amazing person because I love what they're putting in the comment section. This is also our opportunity to expand our learning. And I know that I learn when I teach and when I get into communication. So after you watch the live, go share it with someone, get into conversation, and teach something and integrate something into what you do for the week. All right, so I'm going to get our conversation popping. As I said, my name is Suzanne Hart. Welcome to Unstoppable Mindset. Our conversation today is powerful truth why your social life might be exposing your past failures and definitely some of your hurts. This conversation is for you. If at times you find something popping out of your mouth and you're wondering, where did that come from? And it might be affecting your success. This is definitely for you. If you find that your body language is communicating something other than what you want people to hear and what you want people to know. Okay, so you might be wondering, how are we going to get into this conversation and what does this have to do with communication? This has everything to do with communication. What does my communication have to do with past hurts? What does my communication have to do with past failures? Well, in our language, we can tell so much about ourselves. And if you listen, you can tell so much about a person. So I'm going to do my best today to unpack what might be going on so that you get a sense of what I'm talking about. So I want to start with a story or a situation that that might just kind of bring some stuff to life. So I remember when I was working in Toronto, and I was in management. And traditionally, the managers would go out and present. They go present to different companies, different organizations, that sort of thing. And my boss would always say, "Suzanne, I'd love for you to go and present to this organization." And the minute she would say that, I would get instant anxiety. And I'd say to her, "No, that's not my thing. I'm committed to making you look good. I don't do public speaking." And I knew she could tell by my body language that I had all these mixed emotions. And whenever someone would invite me to speak, I would literally shut down. The other thing that was really interesting, I'm just going to give you a little bit of clues around Suzanne in terms of body language and certain things. So the other clue that would happen was when I was in conversation with someone and I didn't know what was going on, I would totally withdraw. And rather than ask for more information, rather than ask a question, because I didn't want to look bad, I would just withdraw from the conversation. Now, I would listen, but I wouldn't actually be engaged. And see, and what would happen was people would often say, get this, that I was aloof. And I'd say, aloof? I'm not aloof. But truly, where they were seeing a part of me that I was trying to hide. Now, this is not the best thing for business when you're trying to show up confident, when you're trying to show up on point, when you're trying to show up as if you know what you're doing. And I'm using the word trying because I wasn't showing up that way, because I wasn't certain. And you see, the thing is that in those times, I was committed to looking good and looking like I knew what I was doing rather than being in full integrity and fully transparent. And it was showing up all over my communication, although I didn't know it. It was showing up in my body language and it was showing up in my language. And I tell people that when you and I are out of integrity, we lose power. We lose power. And what I mean by we lose power, it shows in our communication in many different ways. So I want to talk a little bit today about why that happened and how my boss could tell that I had lost power, how she could tell that I wasn't comfortable and that I was not confident, although I was attempting to pretend to be confident. It was all over my language. It was all over my body language. So we're going to take some time and unpack this. So how does this really work? So the first thing I want you to think about is how our communication works and what we think about communication. So I want to think you to think of your communication as an iceberg. And when an iceberg is floating through the water, right? There's a part of the iceberg that's above the water. And there's a part of the iceberg that lives below the water. So I want you to think of the part that's above the water. They like to call it your public self. And your public self is what you feel comfortable showing the world. But your public self is that self that wants to save face. It's that part of you that wants to be in total and, to look good, possibly. And so that's what the world sees. And the world sees what you're willing to show it. So we think, but I'm telling you, it tends to see and hear more if the person is truly listening. So that's our public self. Underneath the surface is what we call our private self and sometimes our unknown self. And so that's deeper in the water. Now, what happens is we think all this stuff lives below the surface, but it pops up in the most unexpected ways when things happen. So let's say you're asked a question, you're asked to do something, you are embarrassed, you are put in a situation where you feel awkward. What begins to happen is something from below the surface, other than your public self, will pop up above the surface. And what we try to do is we try to push it down. We try to, like, those emotions bubble up, those thoughts bubble up, all these things, and we think, oh, I'll just push it down and no one will notice. But what happens is as we're trying to push it down, it shows up in how we respond. It shows up in how we react. It shows up in our body language. It shows up in our energy. It shows up in all sorts of different ways. And I like to think about it as if you took a beach ball and you were in a pool and you were trying to hold the beach ball under the water. It's effort, but the beach ball is wanting to come up above the water. So you're holding it down, but unless you have a firm grip on it, it is going to pop up and go flying into the air. And that is what it's kind of like. It's things will pop out of our mouth that tell the world things about us. Things will show up on our face that tells the world things about us because we're trying to push it down, because we're trying to look good. We're trying to pretend like we know what we're doing, and it's coming in our communication. And so that's the first thing I want you to get, because that's kind of how it works. So I like to say an event happens. And when the event happens, right, it triggers something. But this is the interesting thing. It doesn't trigger something in the moment. We're not present. It triggers something from our past. And that thing pops up, and we're actually living in our past and responding from our past. So part of it was, how is it affecting our success and our relationships? Well, think about it. If you're living in today and you're responding from the past, you're actually not present, and you're actually not responding to what's actually truly going on. So let me ask you this question. Have you ever been in conversation with someone? So I see Cindy and I see Taria, so welcome. So have you ever been in conversation with someone and you said something and they reacted in a way where you went, well, that's odd. What's that about? I don't understand what's going on. Possibly they're not reacting in the present. They're reacting from a past hurt, a past thought, a past feeling, and they're acting like it's happening in the moment. So an event occurs, it triggers something in us, an emotion, and that emotion causes a reaction that we are putting into the world. So how do we begin to interrupt this? The first thing is to understand how it works. So this is what I like to think about, is how many times, and I'm going to ask you, if it's for those of you listening, how many of you have realized that you're walking around dragging part of your past around with you? And what I mean by your past is, I had a fear of speaking. And for 35 years, I dragged an incident that happened when I was in grade 1 around with me. And every time someone asked me to speak, I would go back to that incident and it would show up all over my behavior, right? All over my body, in my language, so on. It might be that you are invited to take on a project, but you did something similar to that in the past, and your mind is saying, that won't work. You've done this before. And now you're dragging that conversation from the past into your future, and you're reacting from that place, and you're saying, it won't work. I've done something like this before. Or you meet someone and they do something similar to what someone else has done to you, but what that person in the past did to you didn't work out very well. And you react from the place in the past, and the person who's in the present is going, what on earth is going on? You get an offer, and you're uncomfortable because some of the things are maybe things you failed at before. And you say, no, I can't do that, because you're relating to your past failures, and the fear comes up, and you say, you know what? It's not my time. I'm not ready for that. I'm not that person. How many of you are relating? Trina's like, yes, that's emotional baggage and that we need to unload. Absolutely. Unfortunately, it's not as easy as just unloading it. It's not as easy as just dropping it off and thinking it's going to go away. What's really key is to know that the baggage exists. That is truly step one. It's to know that in the past, there is baggage that pops into your future when you're unaware. So that's the first thing. So, and this can just be damaging to our future. It can be damaging to our engagement. It can be damaging to so many different things. So the question is, what do you do? What do you truly do? Because every one of us has a past. Every one of us has a fear. Every one of us has something that has occurred. Every one of us has events that make us uncertain. We all have it. So this is where communication is so powerful. I want you to consider that everything shows up in our language. Everything shows up in our body language. It shows up in our facial expressions. So when you think you're hiding something, chances are you're not. It's showing up. And I remember when I first started in sales, and I wasn't certain and I wasn't confident about my ability to sell. And I would go into a sales process with all the right techniques and all these things. I knew what to say. I knew when to say it. I knew how to close. I knew all these things, but nothing would happen. And this was the thing that I realized was while my mouth was saying one thing, my body language was saying a totally different thing. So while I was saying, I'd like, would you like to get started with me? My other part of me was saying, don't you dare, right? I'm not comfortable. And what happened was people were getting these mixed signals, words saying one thing, body saying another. Nothing happened. I was totally out of alignment. And so this is where the game is. Cindy's saying, yes, I can relate. Julia's like, tell me about it. I love it. So let me give you another example because it popped into my head and it's really key. Let's talk money. Let's talk money, right? We all have our money conversations that we receive from our family of origin. They like the money conversations that came around the kitchen table. We don't have the money. Money doesn't grow on trees. Maybe you don't talk about money, all those things. So when a money conversation comes up, we often relate to it, not from what's in the present, not from the offer, but from all the things that we have in our communication in the past. So what I see is, although people are saying, I'm up to big things, I want more, I'm going to go create this, all over their language is fear, doubt, and their beliefs about money, their beliefs about success, their beliefs about their ability, their beliefs about all these things. And we put it out there, right? I can't do that. I'll try. That's too big for me. Oh my gosh, that's way beyond my reach. We put all these things in the world through our communication while we're saying we're going after something else. So that's where it starts. So the question is, what do you do with that? So, if you work with me, the first thing I'll say is just accept it as true, right? This is what I do. This is what you do. This is what everyone does. We all have things in our past that we are required to contend with. They bring up emotions. So what happens is the first step is to accept it. The second step is to understand that how I'm perceiving the present moment is being filtered by my experience in the past and the emotions that experience brings about. So before I respond or react or allow something to come out of my mouth, I've actually got to be aware of this. So this is how it looks. Something happens and my emotions from the past pop up. I'm looking at it through the lens of my past, and I need to stop. And this is where the key is. Now, there's a distinction I want to talk about. People will say she reacted and or she responded. Reaction in my world is from the past, and it's when things come out of your mouth or show up on your body without you filtering it, without your awareness. It's your automatic way of being. A response is when you actually take the moment to be present to your emotions and you choose your response. Now, listen to what I'm saying. Be present to your emotions and choose your response. I'm not saying push down the emotions like the beach ball. and have it pop up in some other place that wasn't very helpful. I am saying be present to it and then respond. So, how do you do that is really the question. For me, sometimes it's just being authentically open and saying, this is what's coming up for me, right? So I might say, if I was hanging out with Sharia and she asked me to do something and I felt the incongruency, in other words, I'm tempted to say something, but I know it's all over my body language. I might say, I'd love to do this, but this is what's coming up for me. I am truly uncomfortable speaking in front of large crowds. If you can work through this with me, I'd be happy to do that. Now, my body language, my communication is authentic and true, right? If I don't understand something or I don't know something, the thing is to, rather than try and blunder through it, is to actually get an honest communication rather than have a disconnect and have the people be trying to read what's really going on and saying, you know what? So one of my questions is, tell me more about that because I'm not clear. It might be, I don't actually have an answer for that, but I can actually go and get that answer for you. I'm not certain about what you're talking about right now. Could you give me more information? So you see, rather than have people live with my misalignment and rather have people live with body language that's off, with out of alignment and different to my communication, or have words come out of me like, I'll try. You know, when I'm trying, I'm not really going to do it. I'm not committing. I just don't want to say no. So rather than have these things happen, is to be in authentic, transparent conversation. Now, I know there's some of you going, are you really going to do that in front of a client? Are you really going to do that in front of someone you're wanting to get a contract with? All those different things. And I'm going to say absolutely. And this is why. Because if I don't, they're picking it up anyway. So it's much better to just say, I'm not clear on that. Can you give me more information? I have not done that, but I'm a quick learner. All those different things. Because otherwise, the communication is totally off. Totally, totally off. So let me see what else I wanted to give you today. Let's talk about your communication and your belief system. Let's talk about your communication and your conditioning. Let's talk about your communication and your biases. And this is another way that what you say can truly show up and damage relationships, damage opportunities, all those different things. Now, one of the things that is really big right now is equity, inclusion, diversity, all those things. And those truly live in our biases, they live in our conditionings, they live in all these different things. This is the crazy thing about it. No one wants to talk about it. No one wants to admit that they got biases, that they're conditioned to believe something, that they have judgments about groups and people and all these different things. But I'm going to tell you, even though you're not talking about it, it's out, it's coming out in your language, in your reactions, in your body language, in how you respond to people, all those different things. So again, this is how our communication, the stuff we don't want to look at, is showing up in the world, telling the world what you believe, telling the world your biases, telling the world all these different things. So for me, the biggest learn for me that really changed my dynamics around how I engaged with people, how I engaged in business, was to actually know that I have biases. I have lots of them. To know that I have past conditionings. And I have past conditionings in terms of how I see different groups of people, how I see different situations. I have past conditionings about so many different things. And it is knowing my biases that actually allows it not to come out in the most unexpected or inappropriate way. So it's really beginning to have that awareness about my biases, my conditioning, my judgment, all those different things. So I'll give you a great example. When I worked in Toronto, I managed one of the largest drop-ins in the downtown core. We saw homeless women. Our clientele were homeless women, women who had addictions issues, women who had mental health issues and chose not to medicate. That was the population that we served. And when I took the job, I will be honest, I had no idea truly what I was saying yes to. My first month at work, I faced every bias I could imagine. I faced all my bias about who is homeless, all my biases about people with addictions, all my biases about people who had issues with their income. I had every bias. It was like all over me. And and I could tell it was coming out in how I engaged with people. What I was required to do was to actually face those biases and admit to myself that this is what I have been taught to believe about different groups of people, about different ex people in different socioeconomic brackets, why they got there, why they were there. I had all these beliefs about who lived on the streets and why they lived on the streets. I had all these fears and unknowns about people with mental health. They were all over me. The first access to changing my communication was to watch my communication, what I was saying with myself and what my fears were. It was to actually begin to be present to my own body language, to my own fears, all those things that were going on, and to say, Suzanne, these are yours. These are yours. The more conscious I was, the more I was actually able to ask questions and create engagements that helped me navigate those biases. So it allowed me to be open to being engaged and actually say, I don't know. Because what I do know is based on a stereotype. What I do know is based on my limited exposure. What I do know is based on what I was taught that's not really in truth. So let me be present in this moment and be open to learning. That created a journey that has impacted my future in ways that you can't even imagine. That created a journey that shifted how I engage with diverse groups in such a way, because what it was Suzanne being present to what's below the surface in her own thinking, and Suzanne being present to what's below the surface and the conversations that run me in the background that were inadvertently coming out in the words I was saying or trying not to say, in my body language as I either attempted not to engage, had all these visceral reactions when I engage with people. I had to do my work. So what is communication mastery? Most people think that when I talk about communication mastery, I'm talking about having you speak really good English. That is not my deal. That is not what I do. Communication mastery, mastering your communication, is really about being present to what runs you in the background. It's about being present to how your biases, beliefs, stereotypes, conditioning, experiences, all the conversations you had at your parents' kitchen table actually impact how you engage with another person and how you talk to them and what you say to them because of those beliefs. And knowing that a lot of what we believe is not actually fact, it is conditioned. What we believe is a perspective based on our worldview and our world experience. And it is allowing yourself to come to communication, to come into conversations aware of that perspective. It is also to do the work to be aware of where I and you need to heal around our own stuff so that we're not communicating from that stuff with other people. You see, communication mastery is about what's going on inside you, because my thoughts and my emotions and all that stuff below the surface actually creates what comes out of my mouth. It creates what I say to myself, and then it creates what I say to the world. So to master your communication is all about self-awareness. It's all about having an understanding of what you're walking with as you go through the world, and how what you walk with, what you've experienced, what you know and don't know, impact how you engage and interact with people. That's mastery. And why does it affect our success? Well, it affects our success because if you and I aren't aware of who we're being and how we're showing up, if you and I aren't willing to unpack our biases, our conditioning, our prejudices, all the things that we stereotype, that is who's engaging with the world. And the world has become global. The world has become diverse. And therefore, that's how it impacts your success. Because I truly believe that we are now living in a global economy. And we are going to be called to manage who we be in the face of other people. I truly believe that it's not someone's responsibility to be managing what I say to them. If I really want to advance and if I really want to engage with different groups and different organizations from diverse backgrounds, it is going to be up to me to master my thoughts, my emotions, and effectively what I believe and think as I communicate. Now, will I change everything? Absolutely. But this is the thing. Awareness allows me to be intentional about what I put into the world. There are days where I will put in something into the world that will be disruptive. But my intention of that communication is to disrupt. There are days where being disruptive is not a requirement. I want to be engaging. So I'm going to put in conversation into the world that increases engagement. The only way I can do that is through self-reflection and self-awareness. The only way I can do that is to take 100% responsibility for who I be and how I show up and how I engage in the world. So that's what I got for you today. This was Unstoppable Mindset. Let me see what people are saying. Cherie is saying, I love that. Communication mastery is about being present to what's running you in the background and how it causes you to show up in the world. Absolutely. I see a lot of people saying, I can relate, I get it, I understand. Absolutely. So as I part, this is what I'm going to ask you to do. I'm going to ask you to take a moment this week and reflect on a situation, one situation that happened where communication or engagement did not go well. And I'm going to ask you to do this thing. Rather than make it the responsibility of the other person to have made that communication go better, I want you to say, how could I have ensured that that communication went better? I know for myself, one of the things I've learned is that I'm at times a right fighter. I want to be right, and oftentimes my need to be right causes the conflict, causes the things not to go right. So for me, it is, if I take 100% responsibility, I can almost shift almost anything that's going on. But I have to take responsibility for who I be. So that's my challenge for you this week. Is there anything that you can clean up, re-engage in a different way? If you were to look at your role in it and to say, how can I be more masterful with my communication? What was running in that conversation? What was going on for me in the background that showed up in the middle of that conversation that I can clean up? That's the challenge for this week. My name is Suzanne Hart. You've been listening to Unstoppable Mindset. This conversation is for you if you want to understand communication and begin to master your communication in the world, how you engage in the world. Unstoppable Mindset is always breakthrough strategies to help you reset your thinking so you can live life with passion and purpose. No matter what comes down your street, you know you are able to handle it. We will be back here next week, Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Second week of the month, I always have a guest. So stay tuned. As we depart, remember to leave a comment, like, share this live. And if this is your first time joining us, knock on the door of an Unstoppable Mindset for Super Achievers. That is our group where we hang out. Ask to join. Come on in. We have ongoing conversation, ongoing posts in this vein, all around mindset mastery. And we're committed to helping you reset your thinking because I know you're up to big things. So my last thought for you is to know you're brilliant. Know you are also special. and that the world is waiting for you to put your brilliance into the marketplace. Blessings, and I'll see you next week. Take care.